Hey, Maven Nation, welcome to another episode of Success with Saneness, your bi-weekly dose of solution-inspired stories to help you maintain your well-being. I'm your host, Maven Miara, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and all of the places that the podcast will be hosted. I am again excited today to have my awesome guest, Dr. Susan Lavelle, with me today. I'm smiling so big because we were giggling and just chit-chatting right before I hit record. So listen, these are the type of women that I love to have conversations with. I believe we have the power to change the world with just what we can say and share with other people. So I'm going to actually read a little bit of Dr. Susan's bio. I don't normally do that, but listen, honey, she has some interesting things in here that I want y'all to understand where we are coming from. So, Dr. Susan, the Thrive Architect, which I absolutely love that title, teaches busy entrepreneurs and professionals how to flourish both at work and home by mastering their energy, their weight, and their hormones. Listen, if we were live, I would tell y'all to drop a heart in the chat for all of the things that is going on. Having been a professional ballet dancer for 17 years and then an award-winning plastic surgeon for over 2 decades, Dr. Susan knows what it's like to beat your body and your mind into submission to achieve a certain look or vision. I'm going to stop right there on the bio, Dr. Susan. But listen, when I was reading that, and it's ballet dancer, professional, award-winning plastic surgeon, now doing work really around holistic approaches to life, I was like, you have been on a journey. And of course, the thing that jumps out at me is when you say having to beat your mind and body into what I'm going to label as success, right? Success. Talk to us about that journey. And I know you had a huge medical crisis that was your aha moment of, okay, wait, maybe not. Maybe this is not the path. So tell us a little bit about that and just how you arrived at where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. This really is a journey, and it actually has an arc. It doesn't seem like all of these different things, but it really does. Started when I was 6 years old, believe it or not. And I
Wow.
fell in love with my pediatrician. I thought
Okay.
he was the coolest guy in the world. Now, I fell in love with him because I saw him a lot. I used to
Okay.
have sore throats all the time.
Okay.
Long story short, I told him I was going to be a doctor when I grew up. And he said, okay, when you're ready, you come back and I'll write you a letter. 20
Wow.
years later, he was still in practice. He remembered me and he wrote me a letter from medical school.
Wow.
And I'm
Wow.
sure that's how I got in. But in between that 20 years, though, that's when I went into dancing. And I was a professional ballet dancer for that time in between. And let me tell you, what we do on the field when the show must go on, no matter how you felt, no matter what was
Right.
going on, we're getting on that stage with a smile. And as a ballet dancer, you had to be thin. So that meant we were continuously on a diet. We weren't sleeping well. I mean, and I look back now knowing what I know, and that's where stuff really started, I believe.
Okay.
But then at some point, dancing got to the point where it wasn't as much fun to, go through days and weeks and months away from home. And I started looking back to what I had really originally said, and that was medical school. That's when I applied. I got into Columbia in New York City. I went to medical school there. And I went into plastics because even back then, I didn't like the fact that in internal medicine or family medicine, you would see the same people come in week after week after week with the same problems. They either had diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever it was. They would get a pill and then they would go away and they'd come back the next month. So that have an ill, take a pill kind of thing.
Okay.
I didn't like that. I did rotation in plastic surgery. People came in one way, you did something, and they went out another. And I was like, this is it. I love it.
The transformation.
Right, the whole transformation. And wonderful word, because that's what we do now too. So I went into plastics, loved it, loved the surgery. If I could still just do the surgery without all the other stuff, I might be in plastics.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Okay.
But you can't. There's a whole lot
Okay.
of other stuff that's all mixed into it, and the health part of it is just not there. It really is,
Okay.
it's that sort of thing. Now, you were talking about my health issues. So when I went into plastics, when I was really starting to build a practice, we were in North Carolina, Northeast North Carolina, and there was no other plastic surgeon for an hour in any direction. So
Okay.
you can imagine I was really busy, but I was also up all day in the office or in the operating room. I was raising two kids, and so I was the soccer mom. I'd get out of work and go run them around to games and everything. And then at night, since I was the only plastic surgeon, if they had something, they would call me. So 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm getting
Wow.
called for lacerations on the face and dog bites and things like that. So I was not sleeping for years on end.
Wow.
And what ended up happening, gained 35 pounds. And I'm a short person, so
Okay.
35 pounds was a lot. Started getting more and more fatigued. And eventually, I ended up in the intensive care unit 3 times in the space of 1 year.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And it was that third time when I almost didn't make it back out again. We won't go into that,
Uh-oh.
that I said, I have to change something. And so I went the traditional medical route because that's all I knew. And they just wanted to put me on steroids. And
Okay.
that just made me dizzy, didn't do anything. And I kept searching and I found what is now what we call a lifestyle medicine provider. And that's
Hmm.
when I found out I needed my gut health healed. I needed my hormones healed. I needed to get some sleep.
Very important.
Very important. And started changing things. And eventually I healed myself. And I was like, well, why don't we do this more often? Why don't we do this in medicine? And I tried to do the two at the same time, try to do plastics and
Okay.
holistic health, and they just didn't mix. And finally I
Yeah.
just said, this is it. I am going to go strictly into lifestyle medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating journey, which is why I wanted women to hear all of those different facets of your life that really, I say, we have no wasted experiences.
Yeah.
If
No.
we can get our lessons, if we can get the lesson from that, it really does prepare us for our future self. We
Exactly.
need something from that experience. And me being, 50 plus, I totally get, and most of my audience is in that same age bracket, right? And for me, the big, probably more frustration was I had been doing, the big active hit workouts and eating 3 times, and like I loved it. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm an executor by nature, and so getting out, I was like, yes, this is it. Now I might complain or cuss a little bit during the workouts, but nonetheless, I enjoyed that style. And really, last year, 2022, it just absolutely stopped working.
Yes.
I was gaining weight in the middle of working out.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I was like, oh, well,
What?
wait a minute now. This clearly is not working out.
No.
And so, same thing, found a health and wellness practitioner here who used to be one of my trainers. So I was already connected to her. And I had gone to the doctor for just a mid-year checkup last year. And they were like, your blood pressure's trending high. You look like you might be close to high diabetes. And who
Right.
are you talking about?
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, you sure that's the chart for Myra L. Shaw? I was, when I tell you, and the doctor, and that was my first time going to this doctor because I had a medical insurance change. And so I had to change doctors. And Lord have mercy, I was just so outdone when I walked out of that appointment because it was just so impersonal. It was like she looking at something. Okay, well, you need to start working out and stop eating fried food, lady. Lady, I was like, and I got so frustrated. I didn't even go into, ma'am, I'm working out 3 days a week and doing cardio 2 days a week. Like,
Mhm.
start working out. I am working out, and so
Exactly.
I immediately call who's my personal friend, my health and wellness now coach. It was
Mhm.
like, we have to talk. This is all bad. Like, and I just felt anxious. I felt frustrated, all
Mhm.
of the things. And I was like, and my mind immediately went to, I happen to have a connection, my personal Rolodex,
Mhm.
that when I got in my car almost in tears, I could call her and be like,
Right,
sis,
right.
we got to work something out. We got to figure this out. What about all the women that don't have that particular access or know that
Mhm,
this, holistic lifestyle is available? And again, I'm not against doctors.
mhm.
Kudos for all of that. That particular piece just did not work for me because I can't sit in your office and wait for 45 minutes and you come in and spend five and you don't ask me about my lifestyle. You just go into, don't eat fried food and you need to work out. Dr. Susan, listen,
I love that.
it still gets me worked up to think
Yes,
about how
yes.
the main thing was how powerless I felt in that moment. When I
Mhm.
completely felt empowered to manage my health before that. It was like these hormones showed up in the background, started changing everything. Then I go for I'm like, I'm just going for my annual checkup. And
Mhm.
you start getting all of, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Ooh,
this is
slow down.
this is too much. And it ties into this balance rhythm that I call it, because obviously the older we get, we do have to make changes.
We do, we do.
That's just what is required. So when you would see, I look at your case, professional ballet dancer, award-winning plastic surgeon, and then in intensive care 3 times in 1 year. What was happening in your mind? Did you feel that like you were running on empty, but you just, I think sometimes we feel we just have to keep going. Like what was your thought when you ended up in intensive care for the third time? The third time
The third
to
time.
say, you know what? We might need to do something a little different here. This is not working.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I mean, like I said, I think I carried forward from those dancing days that no matter what's
Ah,
happening, no matter how you felt, you were going to keep going. And if someone paid for their surgery, they're not going to listen to, "Oh, I don't feel like it today."
true,
That's not happening. Then on the
true.
personal end, I said to myself, I chose to be a plastic surgeon. I am not going to let my children suffer because I'm not going to be there for them. So I was
Okay.
there for their games. I was there for their competitions and everything. And you
The
just
the
can't.
mom guilt.
Right, right. You cannot burn the candle on both ends forever. It just doesn't work. It just
Yeah.
and
And I
that.
think that's one of those, we talk about backstories and childhood trauma and how we grow up and all of these things. And you, as a professional ballet dancer, like you said, the process was you get on stage, you put your smile on, and you perform. And then we carry those patterns into our professional lives. You get to
Exactly.
work, especially as a Black woman, you
Mhm.
show up and you overperform. You do better
Exactly.
than anybody else. And that balance, and here's my hope for women, is that we can start to get to the knowledge of knowing we don't have to live that way before we wind up in the intensive care 3 times,
Right.
or we wind up at a doctor's appointment where they're like, basically all your stuff has gone wrong. Just
Yes.
like, can we get there a little bit sooner than?
Yes.
And so in your practice, when you're working with people maybe that haven't gotten to those critical moments,
Mhm.
what are you sharing with them to just get them to start paying attention to themselves, being aware of what your body's saying, because our bodies are always telling us.
They do. Our bodies
We're
know
not
exactly
listening,
what we need.
but it's so how do you help people, men and women, start to, because listen, as we age and bodies start to change, that's not just a woman thing, that's a
No.
man thing as well. I think women are more apt to lean in and figure out, men be like, well, no, it's gonna all work out. Mhm.
Right. Right.
It's, it's,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
not all gonna work out, not how you desire. So how do you help folks, just maybe that have not really thought about holistic approaches, but maybe they're having some type of lifestyle crisis, and then
Mhm.
they show up in your office or on a digital consultation with you? How do you help people just begin to think about living their lives in a better way?
Exactly. One of the things that I started just to make it easy because you never know where people are coming from or what
Hmm.
they know what they don't know, is something that we call the power wheel. And
Okay.
it's just literally the 4 quadrants of premier wellness are eat elite, move more, live wisely, love divinely. And
Okay.
we do this little short, takes 5 minutes, a little quiz that you give yourself in those 4 categories. 5 questions, 4 categories. And you just kind of rate yourself and you
Okay.
visually see, okay, well, eating elite, which doesn't mean eating caviar and champagne, it means eating it means
Live foods, fruits,
right.
veggies, and nuts,
Eating the food that your body
healthy
wants.
proteins. Yes.
Exactly. Maybe it's moving. Maybe it's that living, the stress levels, the sleep, the hormones, or is it that loving? Are you loving yourself enough to do what you need to
Okay.
do? You have those relationships with others in the world. And so you rate yourself with those 4, and then you really see, oh my goodness, I thought I was doing great, but I need a little bit of help over here. And that's the first step, understanding that whole amount of being aware, you know,
Yeah.
um, and that's the first thing. That is absolutely the first start. Yeah.
And that being aware, I probably say something around this phrase on every podcast episode of be gentle with yourself. Because listen, let me tell you, when I walked out of that doctor's office that day, I had to remind myself of what I had been telling Maven Nation to be gentle with yourself because I was like, now how did we arrive here today? Like again, because I was in the middle of working out. I was consistently working out and eating 80% good, right? I was like, no. So I thought I thought I was going to get to skip the hormone thing. I'm like, if I just stay on this path, everything's going to, because I had, it really didn't, again, hit me until last year, which I was already in my 50s. So I
Mhm.
thought all these things have been working, have pushed me past my 40s. Like, we're good. We're good. I'm just like, if you
Right,
just keep doing this, it's just going to
right,
stay good.
right.
Which is probably why I was so shocked and disgusted with the whole tone of the situation when I went into the doctor. But how do also, that being aware of yourself, that's the first thing. And I love that it's in a quiz because that's just for that person one on one.
That one on
You
one.
do the
Yeah.
quiz, you don't have to tell nobody, share with anybody. Look, until they get to their appointment with you, then you have to talk about it.
Here we
But
talk.
I think that helps people be less judgmental of themselves
Hmm.
and to be gentle with yourself because if you don't, let's say, answer that quiz with honesty,
Mm-hmm.
then you're really defeating the purpose.
You
If in the elite eating, you're saying, if it's a scale of 1 to 10 and 10 is the best, and you're saying you're 8, but you a hot dog and hamburger eater every day. Listen,
who are we hurting there?
right, like you get in front of Dr. Susan, she's
Yes.
gonna like, oh, you're doing great in the
Uh,
food category when the truth is that you're not. And
mhm.
so I think the reason I keep talking about this topic so much more is I want women, especially, and men to know if, as my mother used to say, if you're still waking up saying good morning, that's a blessing.
Mhm.
So we have to make adjustments. Our bodies change, things happen. And we have to be able to move past feeling bad or embarrassed or shameful. Because I imagine you, as a professional dancer, award winning plastic surgeon, to end up in the ER, they're like,
What? Exactly. It's like, what? Exactly.
which really lets us know that this can affect anyone,
Anyone, anytime.
anyone.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
and the thought of, when I heard you talking about being there for your kids, women, we do, especially those of us that are moms, we do carry that guilt of trying to make sure we're there for our kids and supporting them, and that it's not all about just our careers and our work and those things, although they get the benefit of that. But a
Mhm.
10-year-old does not care that you're staying at work for an extra 2 hours to make more money if you're not there for their recital. It doesn't
Exactly.
translate for them. And I think that comes to giving ourselves permission to put more
Mhm.
balance in our lives and to our benefit. That's one of the things I think the pandemic has also taught corporations. You've got
Yes.
to allow people. You can't punish people for wanting to have more balance in their lives because
Exactly.
that's just even more pressure, right? To stay at work longer, to be the top performer, even when you're not being rewarded for it, you feel
Exactly.
like it's a treadmill you can't get off. Like if I
Mhm.
get off of this, who am I?
Who am I?
What's
Exactly.
going to happen?
Mhm.
Um, so that being honest with yourself, that's the first step. So they take the quiz, then they hopefully schedule a consult with you.
Mhm.
What's that first conversation that you have with people to really, I think, let them know I'm a partner with you in this. We're going to do
Exactly.
this journey together.
I
What does
love
that
that.
look like? And what have been some of the reactions? Because again, let me tell you, if I had known the doctor that I saw that day a little bit more, honey, we would have had a whole
Oh,
conversation.
oh,
But I didn't know her like that, so I was just like, okay, I'm
oh,
going to my
good.
car. But
Good.
it, that's what you want is to be able to have an open conversation
Mhm.
with your
Mhm.
doctor to say, now wait a minute, I've been
Mhm.
doing all of these things, or I've been doing this, and I thought that was working. Do people normally come with some? No, I'm shocked at this, or most people like, yeah, it finally caught up with me. This is this is where I'm. This is I was waiting for this to happen, kind of thing.
Right, right. I'm going to say that most of the people that I work with have a general idea. And if we're going to be
Okay,
honest, we all kind of know, we
yeah,
know we're not supposed to be eating French fries and all day long and
right,
sitting on the couch. We know that.
yeah,
But most people have gotten past that first part. And so they're coming to me because what used to work doesn't work anymore.
okay,
People like you who have had that conversation with their doctor and like, oh my goodness, I am working out. Why
right.
isn't it working anymore? And that's just the age. 45, 50 is about when it really starts changing.
Hmm.
And so those are the people that we're usually starting with. Okay.
Right.
And what we do once we know that they do want to work with us, we will look at specific testing. So depending on what's going on with them, some people
Hmm.
come in, they already know, well, my gut health is a mess, they
Okay.
and so we'll look down that avenue first. Some people already know these hot flashes are driving me crazy. I know my hormones are out of whack. And we'll go down that pathway. Others will say, I will do anything to get rid of anything to get rid of this last 20 pounds. And so we'll go
Yes.
down that. But knowing that all three of them are always, always interconnected.
Yeah.
That's the thing
Let,
that, yeah.
let's talk about this gut health a little bit because
Mhm.
if you're tapped into the medical and holistic world in any way, those that are listening and watching, we know that gut health is the foundation of so
Mhm.
much that is
Mhm.
either going right or going wrong. So
Exactly.
talk a little bit more about this gut health and how do people recognize when they're having some gut issues versus just like, oh, I've kind of had a stomach ache for the last couple days
Right.
versus kind of more of a cycle type. You kind of get those same feelings. What
Mhm.
should people be looking for or feeling for around this topic of gut health?
This thing. And that's a great question because a lot of people think if it's my gut, I'm going to feel it right here. It's going to be my digestion. I
Mm.
know that something's going on. But your gut health is your mood. So
Ah,
you can be depressed or moody or anxious and it's not your brain, it's your gut. You can
okay.
be fatigued and it's not your energy levels, it's your gut. You can have autoimmune issues like low
Okay.
thyroid, and it doesn't start in your thyroid, it starts in your gut. And then that kind of blossoms out to different areas. So the whole thing is it's not always as clear that that poor gut health is the issue. And that's why, a good way to start is to know, okay, well, I'm not digesting well or things like that. But that's not the only way to tell if your gut is healthy. Yeah.
And when, if someone is seeing, a regular MD,
Hmm.
are there particular, so let's say they're doing an annual checkup and they're going to have blood work done. Are
Hmm.
there some specific things that's probably outside of the normal blood work your doctor, just standard, blood work they're going to do? What are some things they can specifically ask for? Hey, I also want these screenings done so that listen, when you go for these annual checkups, because sometimes that's the only time people go,
Right,
right?
right,
And if the
right.
doctor doesn't say show back up in 2 months to check something else, then you're like, check mark. I
I'm
did
done.
it. The people
Uh-huh.
didn't say I was dying. I'm
Mm,
moving on. But what
exactly.
are some of those additional tests, especially if you past the 45-year-old mark,
Mhm,
where
mhm.
you should just check in and say, let me have these other markers
Just
from
test them.
hormones to gut health or whatever that might look like.
Good, good, good. I'm going to say that one of the most important things is your metabolic profile. Okay, so I'm
Okay.
going to shift a little away from the gut because it may be a little difficult to pull up gut health just on blood work alone.
Okay.
But some things you can look like at is your metabolic profile. So a lot of times you'll go in and you'll get your regular panel and say your glucose. Now the cutoff limit is 99 for a blood glucose,
Okay.
right? Um, but what you may if you look back at your years of testing, it may have been 80, then it was 85, then it was 93, then it was 97. Every year it's going like this, but
Hmm.
nothing done until it hits over that 99 mark. And
Okay.
then you're pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Right.
So that's one thing to look at. That's a really simple one. But even more important, what comes up higher faster are something called the insulin level
Okay.
and, and your hemoglobin A1C. So you may have heard about the A1C. That's a pretty common test nowadays.
Hmm.
So the A1C is looking at what your blood glucose has been like for the last 3 to 4 months,
Oh,
as opposed
wow.
to just what it is just now. So, what if you had a day or two where you were really good because you knew where you were getting your blood work done? Okay. So your
Won't we try to
glucose,
trick the system?
right,
Hmm.
right. So your glucose is going to be good, but that A1C, if you've been eating ice cream the last 3 months, it's going to show. Okay.
Okay.
And even better than that sometimes is the insulin level. So as your blood sugar is raising, your insulin's going to raise as well to kind of keep your blood sugar down. And it'll keep doing that until eventually it can't anymore. And that's
Ah.
when your blood glucose starts to rise. So by the time this is high, your insulin level's been high for a while. So
Okay.
ask your doctor, check your A1C and your insulin levels. That would be one thing for that. Okay.
Okay.
Then looking at something like energy and fatigue, that's another big one.
It
Ask them
is.
to look at a full thyroid panel, okay?
Okay.
Because a lot of times what you may get is what's called a TSH, which is a thyroid stimulating hormone, as a screening tool. And if it's normal, most practitioners general practitioners, not endocrinologists, will say, okay, that's good, you're great.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, there's a lot more going on in the thyroid than what that picks up. So if you ask for a full thyroid panel, you can pick up whether you are autoimmune, whether you have enough of what we call free T3, which is the gasoline that makes your body go.
Okay.
Things like that will show. So that would be the second big thing that I would say ask your doc for that you'll see on a panel.
Nice. I love it because again, this one number looks good, so you're good, right? And
Mhm.
then again, when you show up one year and they're like, "Oh, this is all bad," you're like, "Well, how? How did we get to here?" And
Exactly.
I immediately, when I got home, started looking back at previous reports and seeing numbers just slowly each year tick
Each creeping up.
on the tick up, and I was like, we couldn't have talked about this before we got to this. That was again my whole
Exactly.
frustration was we couldn't have been more proactive. I'm not the doctor. I'm trusting you, right? So we get them. They were honest with themselves with the survey. Then we come in and we start talking through these things with you. What's that next step on and this is the funny thing. If people have been, you know, not physically active for a long time, and now your practitioner is saying, we got to get you moving.
Got to do something.
Um, I believe I read something in one of I think it was an article you shared from NPR today or yesterday on LinkedIn, talking
Mhm.
about small amounts of physical activity. They count.
They
And I
do.
think when people hear a practitioner say you've got to get physically moving, they immediately go, Lord, I got to run a marathon. No, because that's never going to be my journey. It's not. It's never going to be my journey. But what are those small steps to get started? I think people immediately feel, well, I can't do that because they've already associated with I've got to walk for an hour, or I've got to, stay in the gym for an hour, all these things. What are some just you haven't been moving, and now we need to get you physically moving.
Oh, yeah.
What are some small ways people can just, and I always tell people, listen, put your sneakers on, get a neighbor, and just walk. Because your tax dollars already paid for the street and the sidewalks. You already paid for that, And again, this concept of walking it's new to me in my regimen because I didn't like walking. Again, I want to sweat and go and boo, boo, boo. Now I've completely reverted to the walking thing because of how beneficial it is with hormone changes. So what are some of those things people that maybe have been working out, no longer doing it, or have just never had a physically active life can do to get started with small steps?
Yes. We do something in Premier Wellness is called snacks, short,
Okay.
nuanced, actionable exercises.
So give it to us again. Give it to us again.
Short, nuanced, actionable exercises. Snacks.
I love it.
Everybody likes snacks, right? Everybody
Absolutely.
So essentially what it is rather than, like you were saying, think you've got to go, get in the car, go to the gym, be there an hour, sweat and all the thing, come back home. Instead, throughout your day, 1 to 3 minutes, sometimes even just 30 seconds, you do a short movement. So if you're sitting at your desk, you get up and maybe you shake, or maybe you do a favorite dance, or maybe you do some lifting. Maybe you got something hot, heavy on your desk and you just lift that. And if you do those things 1 to 3 minutes, breaking it up every hour, by the time you get to the end of the day, guess what? You've got your 30 minutes of exercise
I see.
without any extra time.
I love the snacks. I love that.
Wonderful. It is wonderful. And it changes, changes people's minds about their perceptions about exercise. The studies are showing you get just as much, if not more value when you move throughout the day. Because when you go to a gym, say you're going to the gym 3 times a week, and then you come home and you're sitting the rest of the time, you've counteracted all of that.
Makes sense.
So exactly. You want to keep moving. The other thing is that everything counts. Like you were saying, walking is wonderful. One time, and I tell the story that I had gotten an Apple Watch and I was just checking stuff out, and so I put it on while I was cleaning my house. And it took me, I was cleaning stuff up and dusting and picking. And I looked and I had twice the number of calories that I had with a regular workout.
Okay.
What? So it really is a matter of just moving. It doesn't have to be exercise. And then, I got one more. And the third thing, when we get to a certain age, cardio really often is not as important. We need more. Walking is wonderful. We need to keep walking, keep everything moving. And then weight training. And a lot of us, especially women, get afraid. We think weights, we're going to get these crazy muscles.
Right.
No. It's going to increase your metabolism. It's going to make it easier to lose weight. You're going to have better balance, which is something that starts to go as we start to age. And it just is a wonderful thing to do as we start to get older. So just weight training, which you can do in those snacks, lift weights for a minute or two.
I love that. And that I'm still doing the weight training, only in 20 minutes, 3 days a week. I just want, even if you've never had a physically active lifestyle, listen, we want to age well. And if you're not physically moving, you are decreasing your chances so significantly of not having more health challenges, having someone have to take care of you, see after you, all of those things.
Exactly.
Physically get moving. My office at home is upstairs. I intentionally do not have a huge water bottle so that every time it's empty, I got to go back downstairs, come back upstairs. I build in the movement. My husband and I at the end of last year bought the desk that you can raise so
That's what
that
I'm
we're
doing
not
right
sitting
now.
all day. We stand, we sit. We have the big medicine ball. You can sit on that a while, which definitely engages your core that you like flip
Yes.
and be on the floor.
I
So
remember
all of these little, I love that, little snacks
things.
help us get this movement in throughout the day. And truly I find for me that it helps me sleep so much. That's another challenge once you kind of get into the menopause world. I did add the magnesium before bedtime, but mainly the walking and the strength training 3 days a week. It helps me when I go to sleep that I'm
Mhm.
not waking up in the middle of the night every night. Now, that doesn't happen for 365, but I
Right.
definitely get more nights of full sleep now than I do of, waking up. My time was 3:31. Lord. And you'd be awake for sometimes an hour, sometimes 3 hours. And
Yes.
when it's time to get moving for the day, now you're tired because you didn't sleep well. And
Mhm.
listen, for me, I am not a good maven when I do not get enough sleep. I, I confess it. I
Oh my
listen,
goodness.
my patience runs lower than normal when I don't have enough sleep because I'm tired. I really am tired. And when you're interacting with people all day and talking and coaching and speaking and doing all these things, if you haven't had enough sleep, people are depending on me to be right. Listen,
It does not, it does not work long term. It does not. Well,
it
I mean,
does not.
yeah, think about all the stuff that happens when you're sleeping. That's when
Yeah.
your body's detoxifying. It's when your
Mhm.
brain is detoxifying. It's when all of your hormones are resetting. If you're not doing that night after night after night, what do you expect from your body?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Now, here's something that I incorporate and actually have grown to love it. But you talk about how important you think this is creating that morning routine where we
Hmm.
don't jump up and get on these little devices. As soon as our eyes pop open, how
Hmm.
important is setting the tone for your day? Um, and really being so intentional to have
Yes.
that not include electronics. My goodness, we have an addiction to these things. I just sometimes I have to be like, no, do not touch that phone, lady.
And it's hard. It
It
can be
is
very
hard.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that was eye opening to me was when I had some of my lab work done, and one of the things I looked at was my morning cortisol. So that's
Oh,
looking cortisol is your stress hormone, and which is
okay.
a big thing. And so I looked at it, and it's supposed to spike in the morning because that's what wakes you up. Mine
Okay.
was way over the top line, and
Okay.
then I look back at what am I doing first thing in the morning? I used to be getting on the phone, checking my email, seeing what I forgot from the day before,
Right.
and that's what was doing it. And so I
Ah,
hey, that's it. I am not we stopped that completely. Now I do mindset, I may do a meditation, I may
yeah.
do yoga, I may do whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
something for me first. For me
Yeah.
before I start going out to the world. Because you
Listen,
gotta
maybe I have been saying this to y'all about these morning routines, but now Dr. Susan has told you the medical piece of it, how it definitely because you think about what's happening on your phone. You're checking an email, which is already a little distressful because you're thinking you checking because you missed something the day before. So that's
Mhm,
already a cortisol spike, right?
mhm.
And here's the thing: we think I'm just going to do this one thing,
One. I'm gonna do just one, right?
and now you reply to the one email. Now you reply to two text messages. You are now scrolling on Instagram and LinkedIn. And just think about that. I think I have a really positive feed because I don't follow foolishness.
Mhm.
But even that, you're still going to get some distressful news in there. Someone's
And
lost a loved one or, life happens. And if that's what you're taking in first thing in the
first
morning, and
exact
that cortisone level is spiking, which tells your body stress, warning, warning, alert, alert. Now your body is doing all of this revving up when what I want is to start my day with a bit of grace, ease, and flow. Now,
exact
by the time we get to lunch, we might be full blast into some stuff, but we did give ourselves the benefit of
Mhm.
starting with grace and gently. entering into a new day with gratitude. I do my morning prayer, meditation, and a little bit of stretching, honey, just to get these 50-year-old bones together and warmed up a bit before we head off to the races. But that's a really important point about our morning,
Mm-hmm.
that we have to be so mindful of what we are allowing into our eye gate, our ear gate, first thing in the morning, because it does have a real medical effect on our bodies. I love that piece of knowledge, because I was always saying do the morning routine because it's good, it's positive, and da, da, da,
Mm-hmm.
but it really has a medical effect.
It's a medical reason for doing it. Yes, yes.
Wow. Okay, maybe. See, y'all didn't hear it from me. You heard it from Dr. Susan. So
Time
just
to do it.
saying, time to do it. More reinforcement. Um, Listen, I so appreciate, and what we'll do, Dr. Susan, and for all of those that are listening, we will drop your link where they can do this survey. And what was that call? You had a word for that.
The power wheel.
The power wheel. They can do that honest assessment, because sometimes we've been so used to ignoring our bodies and what it's telling
Mhm.
us, all the little warning signs, that we've ignored all of these things. And if you have to read the survey and then give an honest answer, maybe that's the tool that some men and women need, that go, you know what? Okay, I've been putting this off, and I've been dishonest with myself. And
Mhm.
clearly, this wheel has shown me that it's time.
It's
It's
time.
time, because, my desire and wish is that we create success. This is what I define as balanced rhythm. Create success without sacrificing our
Yeah.
relationships, our health, or our mental sanity, because I believe it is attainable. It is attainable,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
without all of the craziness. Now, we're going to encounter some craziness in the day, bless God,
Yeah.
but we
Yes.
don't have to wake up with it, be in it all day, in the day with it. We've got to give ourselves permission and use our power to get off of that type of hamster wheel, that type of train, because it especially for Black women, it is
Mhm.
showing up in our health. It is showing up in our health. And like you said, we can go so long and our bodies are going to abandon us. We just won't. Again, your third time in the intensive care, you're like, okay, all right, this is a sign. This is it.
Mhm.
And I want us to know that we can get there before the third intensive care moment, right? We can get there before you go to the doctor and you're completely annoyed and frustrated and kind of like, what happened? When
Exactly.
did this happen? I want us to get there before that,
Mhm.
so that we can approach life, and listen, age out as beautifully and as healthfully as we can. So I
Mhm.
so appreciate you sharing with us today. We met, I heard you on the Dell for Women, one of the power sessions, and I was like, I've got to have her on my podcast, because this type of knowledge really is power.
It is.
They say all knowledge is power. That's a little shaky nowadays with all the bad information that's out there. But this knowledge is power. And I really want men and women to be reminded that you can take a lot of these things back into your control, and
Mhm.
go with intention on what you need before you're stretched out,
Mhm.
in the hospital, or on the psych ward, or whatever all the big traumatic things are, right? We
Mhm.
can get a handle on it before then and more proactively do that. So I thank you
Oh,
graciously for sharing with Maven Nation today. And Maven Nation will share Dr. Susan's links and all of those great things. Do you do any digital classes or things like that where people can
absolutely.
join you virtually?
Absolutely.
You have anything coming up soon?
Well, I'm getting ready to start my next cohort. We do a 6-week
Okay.
course on the book, Thrive. So it's
I
six
love
weeks,
it.
And it's just about how you start mastering your energies. That's coming
Oh,
up.
I love it.
Yeah.
Listen, we're gonna Dr. Susan's gonna send us all the information. We're gonna put it in the show notes so that you have a resource to go to. In today's world, it doesn't matter that we don't live in the same city. We
Nope.
have the interwebs that can get us connected at any point possible. So, Dr. Susan, before you go, I do a rapid fire question with my guests at the end. I just always love everyone's reaction when I say they're like, "Oh, what is Maven Miara getting ready to ask me today?" All very easy, light and easy. So I'm going to give you 2 or 3 options, and then you just tell me which one fits you. So if you had the option of meat, seafood, or veggies, which one would you go with?
Seafood.
Seafood, peanut butter and jelly, or grilled cheese.
You can tell from the peanut butter. I know.
Just like peanut butter, grilled cheese. Zip lines or pool lounging?
I would have said pool lounging until I did a zip line this last year. I loved it.
Isn't it invigorating? Like,
it was so awesome.
yeah, love that. Love that. Reading a book or an audiobook?
Audiobook. I'm an audible.
It's the time. It's the time. Nap or no nap?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
Okay.
Just like I take my naps when I need them. Digital planner or paper planner?
Both.
Okay, very good. Biggie or Tupac?
Oh, Tupac.
Tupac, yes. Techie or old school?
Techie.
Okay. Heels or flats?
These days, flats.
Listen, I'm right there with you.
I can't do them anymore.
Yeah. After the pandemic, I'm like, I have a whole beautiful collection of the flyest sneakers on the planet. I'm like, listen, it's too much. And the last one, ice cream or cookies?
Cookies.
Cookies. Excellent. Listen, I love
gluten-free.
Listen, absolutely. Absolutely gluten-free. I made some gluten-free banana nut dark chocolate chip muffins the other day. It was a delight to my soul. Listen, it solved all the problems that I had in the world at that moment. We're good. Thank you again, Dr. Susan, for joining us today and helping me share the great news that we have the power, way more than we realize, to take control of our mental lives, the physical, the medical, all of those things, to really live out what I call this balance rhythm, where you don't have to sacrifice to your detriment your relationships, your health, or your mental sanity. Maven Nation, take this full episode, share it, listen with all of your sisters, all of your brothers, so that they too can understand that they can take back their power and manage better the healthful lives that we all want to live. Thanks again for joining us. And until next time, keep doing your BAM thing.